As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Obscurity Now, the show where we take a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media, and then we decide if they should be tossed into the black hole of obscurity or remembered for all of human history. My name is Steve, and I am one of the hosts, and with me is a man who no longer has a chance to be visited by his cyborg son from the future. It's
Yahel. Yes, thank you, Steve. I have tossed my sperm into the black hole of obscurity.
You had 2 weeks to come up with that comment, didn't you?
I just came up with it now.
Well done.
I did have a few others I had workshopped, but since, but you know, the transition was too tempting to pass up.
I mean, do you want to clarify to the listener/viewer exactly what you're talking about?
Oh yes, when I masturbate, I just do it right into the trash can.
This is a Howard Stern episode here. My God.
No. I had a vasectomy a couple days ago. Got to get up at the chipper hour of 5 a.m. to go.
I don't know what's worse, waking up that early or getting your balls chopped off.
I know, right? Well, Steve, they don't chop off your balls.
What? They don't?
They just make two little incisions in your ball sack. Doesn't leave a scar, and they cut your vas deferens. And then I guess they cauterize it or something. They burn the ends so that it doesn't heal. And then it takes about 6 weeks apparently to get all of the sperm that's just hanging out or whatever, like out. So in 6 weeks, you get to give them a sample of the old Yahel goo and the Yahel baby batter. And then as long as there's no actual babies in the baby batter, then I'm in the clear. So yeah, in about 6 weeks is when I'll technically be clear. But I highly recommend it. Like it really wasn't that painful. Like I was a little achy the first day, second day practically nothing, and today they feel almost normal.
Well, this episode is brought to you by Johnson's Vasectomies. Vasectomies at half the price. Big Johnson's Vasectomies. Remember those Big Johnson shirts? Did you ever have one of those?
No, but I remember like lots of kids in elementary school had them, which I thought was like weird.
They think they were all edgy, wearing them to like second grade. And I'm over here rocking a no fear shirt, just showing everyone that I have no fear.
I never had those either, but yeah, I remember those.
Not even one? Yeah.
No, but I did have some body glove shirts.
All right.
And
that's more like it.
I had one of the I think I had a hypercolor shirt as well.
Nice. Well, speaking of things from the 90s, of course, if you're sticking with us for our summer of image, celebration, if you will, because it's their 30th. Did you even know that it was their 30th anniversary? I have to say that was kind of like an accident on our part.
Well, Steve, at the Reptilian Media Production meeting, we did discuss that. I wish you would have been there. Yeah.
Who are you having meetings with if I'm not there?
But no, I didn't know that. One last thing, Steve, I did want to say about vasectomies.
Please bring it back to talk about vasectomies.
Because I had thought about this joke earlier. Like I was saying earlier, you can't have sex for about a week, up to 2 weeks if you're taking longer to heal or whatever, you're still sore. But hey, if you're a listener of Obscurity Now, that shouldn't be any change to your daily life.
Thank you for insulting our very minimal audience, but
yes.
we all know you're very highly virile men and women. Like he's it's just a joke. I mean, I assume if you watch this show, you're probably in line with our sense of humor.
You're probably having sex listening to the show.
Who wouldn't? I mean, our voices are. I mean, just listen to this. Who wouldn't want to make love to the sound of this?
God, it sounds like sandpaper talking.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about my cold. And now I just acknowledged it when I said I didn't want to. But Anyway, yes, speaking of the 90s, yes, we've been talking about Image Comics, and we had our Youngblood episode, specifically talking about the creator of Rob Liefeld. And so, of course, I'm a member of these various like Facebook groups, and I didn't join this one specifically so I could post the episode in there, but I'm in a group called Extreme, a Rob Liefeld Facebook group or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm like, yeah, so sure, I should probably post the episode in there. And I did know that Rob Liefeld was actually in that group. Like, he would pop up occasionally, like commenting on things. And so I'm just like, hey, maybe he'll comment on the podcast that I'm about to throw up here. And I put it up. And first comment, it's Rob Liefeld.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that he's an actual moderator of the group. In fact, I think he might have created it himself.
It sounds like something he might do.
So, yeah, his comment was, and I'm just, I'll try to bring it to life here using my acting and VO skills. As if anybody actually listen to these, just let me know. I'll take it down. And I'm like, ooh, okay, well, maybe Rob is not a big fan of podcasts or whatever. And then I was looking at the thumbnail, and I was like, I mean, there's nothing insulting there except for it said, "Hey kids, do you like pouches?" I mean,
I bet that's what rubbed him the wrong way, or maybe he actually listened to it.
Hey,
I do.
We were complimentary in the end.
Yeah, no. I thought we were complimentary throughout. I mean, yeah, we poked fun at a couple things here and there, but I mean, honestly, he's got like his own very distinctive art style, and I wish I could draw half as well as he does.
I mean, I immediately jumped in there. I was like, because I posted, I was like, describing the show and how it works. Should Youngblood be tossed in the black hole of obscurity? And I was like, hey, Rob, spoiler alert, we're really big fans. If you don't like it, I'll take it down. I wasn't so much worried about his reaction as the rest of the group. I was afraid they would pick up on his, maybe
his tone,
lack of enthusiasm. They'd be like, oh yeah, fuck podcasts. But it was the opposite. There was a lot of likes, and we actually got a lot of listens because of posting in there. And yeah, Rob never replied to me. So overall, it was the right move, I would say. Yeah. So
our feud with Rob Liefeld, I'm sure, will continue. I do want to point out we have Kenny P. Collin here in the chat. He earlier said of your ASMR, he called it ASMR at its best. He also said that Rob Liefeld worships feet and refuses to draw them for religious reasons.
You think he and Quentin Tarantino hang out and watch feet videos together?
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyways, we were not savage in our critique of Rob Liefeld like he assumed we were, but we do have a dragon of the savage variety to review.
Hey, we can't. All right,
really reaching.
That is a beautiful segue, but we can't jump in there. I've got a segue here.
I apologize.
Continue going with the Rob Liefeld. So there's a video on the Obscurity Now YouTube channel. Basically, I was on vacation the last couple of weeks, visiting my parents in their small town of Georgia, and to try to encapsulate all this, or in other words, to make a long story short, a friend's son of my mom had a bunch of comics laying around, and I was like, hey, I'd like to poke through them and take a look, and I just assumed I'd go open their attic and poke around in these long boxes and then try to make a deal or something. Well, I get there, the guy has it all strewn about on the living room floor, and he's like, hey, they're mostly X-Men reprints. If you want them, just take them. And I was like, at first I was like, ugh, because it was the X-Men from the 80s, and then also X-Factor and Excalibur, stuff I just don't care about. But I was like, well, if this guy took the time to bring it down, I'll at least take it off his hands and look through it. So I did, and there was some decent stuff in there, but the highlights were this Rob Liefeld drawn What If with
nice.
Wolverine there. I mean, this isn't really a high dollar book, but I always like the color or cover. So
yeah, it's a cool cover.
And I saw this one first, and as I was digging through, I was like, there sure are a lot of New Mutants in this collection. Perhaps there's a New Mutants 98, which is the first appearance of Deadpool, of course. There wasn't, but I'd say this is a runner-up to that, and that's New Mutants 87, first appearance of Cable,
wow.
right there. Which
I remember I had that one, man. I regret losing most of my comics.
I've always wanted this one too. And there was also a lot of other first appearances in there. First appearance of Apocalypse, first appearance of Mr. Sinister, and so on and so forth. So that was a nice little surprise. I mean, it's basically like someone handed you like a fist full of, I don't know, $10 bills, I guess. Yes, anyway, we're not here to talk about Rob Liefeld. We are here to talk about the Savage Dragon. Shall we just go ahead and go to the Obscuritron, Yahel?
Please, let's do that. I was just turning my microphone down. It was pretty loud on the on YouTube. So.
All right, here we go.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
All right, so Yahel, let's just get right into it. What is your history with one Savage Dragon and Eric Larsen?
So Eric Larsen was not one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, he was not one of the original founding members of Image. So I think he showed up maybe a year later. Or
are you sure? I thought he's considered a founder.
Oh, is he a founding member? Okay.
Yeah, he is.
All right, well, that corrected me because I was wrong. But yeah, so I do remember though picking up the first issue of Savage Dragon. I mean, I think I mentioned before, the first couple years of Image, I was picking up
of the miniseries.
Yeah, the one that the cover just came up here.
Right. Yeah, that's the miniseries. Yeah.
And I liked it, but I didn't become a huge fan, and I never stuck with it. So yeah. Didn't hate it, just I don't know, for whatever reason. He's not a traditional '90s superhero. He doesn't shoot things or have weird glowy shit around his hands.
Right? Yeah, he's
not enough pouches. Despite as a police officer, if anybody should have a ton of pouches and get away with it, it would be Savage Dragon as a cop.
Well, I think that's a good segue into sort of Eric Larsen's kind of style. Sure. I would say as an artist, he is basically the opposite of a Rob Liefeld or a Jim Lee in the way that his stuff is pretty simple. He doesn't do a lot of little stuff. It's just look at Savage Dragon right there. He's just a guy in a wife beater and jeans, basically. I mean, do you enjoy? I mean, because I would say that Eric Larsen, his style can be divisive. What do you think of his style?
I think he's got a really, I think he's a great artist. I will say though, I don't think it stands out in terms of Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld. Those guys have very extremely distinct art styles. I feel where you can spot it a mile away. Whereas if Eric Larsen draws Superman and you see three other comic book artists that drew Superman, I don't know that you necessarily pick out which one was Eric Larsen's or something.
See, I can agree to that statement to a point because it's weird. All right, so I actually read quite a bit of Savage Dragon. It's one of the, at first, yeah, I think I got the number, or at least I read the miniseries and a bit of the ongoing. I know my brother collected it at first, and so I'm sure I read his. And yeah, just like yourself, I was this is pretty cool. I just like how different it is. I mean, who what superhero joins the police force?
Right.
I mean, that's.
And I do want to point out, Kenny P. Collin had mentioned in the chat here that of Savage Dragon that he loved it because it was something, and that it was something different and a little oddball. And he did mention something which I had kind of forgotten about till he said it, was that Eric Larsen had a good run on Spider-Man, and I do remember enjoying his Spider-Man run.
That's the one I remember, at least part, because he was on it for a while. That's when they bring back Peter Parker's parents, and they were spies or something.
Yeah, I think so.
That was so weird. But yeah, so Savage Dragon comes along the Image universe, and but oh yeah, as I was saying, all right, so Savage Dragon has been along the comic book for a really long time. He's the only superhero in the Image universe that is still continuing to this day. You can go read Savage Dragon number, I don't know, I think they're on like 400 and something, and it's all written and drawn by Eric Larsen.
Still, wow.
Yeah.
Isn't Spawn still ongoing?
Yeah, but McFarlane doesn't. I
know he doesn't like.
Yeah, he doesn't do
much.
all of them. I mean, that's like the big deal with Savage Dragon is that it is all done by Eric Larsen.
What a control freak!
Yeah, exactly. And but back to Eric Larsen's style. Like, it's weird when you read the Dragon. There's I guess the sort of image style at the time.
The dragon. That's what you call you guys on that kind of personal name basis.
I call him SD. You know,
I call him Drags.
Drags. That's awful.
Yeah, that's awful. That would be like his gritty like reboot version from like 2005, and he uses exclusively Axe body spray.
Man, I don't think you can get much grittier than Savage Dragon. I mean, those comics are so violent, and there's so many like bullets flying around and people getting their limbs ripped off.
Yeah, I was interested in how they were going to translate that to the cartoon, to a kid's cartoon, and well, it went about how I expected.
Right. So I think that's probably enough for well, all right, I'm trying to make a point is that Eric Larsen kind of mixed up his style a little bit. Like the first 100 issues of Savage Dragon are sort of done in that his like typical like image style that you're seeing a lot of it on the screen here. But then now if you look at it, it looks more like sort of like Jack Kirby on crack. Like see how his like fists are really big there, and it's not as detailed. It's actually almost more cartoony now, and I just feel like that is Eric Larsen's style. At least it is now. But anyway, so just to talk about Savage Dragon, his first appearance, just like with Youngblood, it is not in Savage Dragon #1. It is in a indie comic called Graphic Fantasy #1 back in June of 1982, and he was just called The Dragon in that, and then he was first named Savage Dragon in Megaton #3 of February 1986, and of course he's created by Eric Larsen. So I think we can probably put a pin in the comic there. So moving on to the cartoon.
Right.
Did you watch?
We're actually covering it.
Yeah,
I did not watch. I don't think I watched it regularly at all growing up. I mean, I know I didn't, but I mean, when I was watching it, like it did trigger memories of it. So I must have like watched it here or there. I'm sure at the very least, with it being an Image property, I was going to give it a look-see, if you will.
Sure.
But I was also, this came out when I was like 15, and full of hormones, and just wasn't as interested in watching a cartoon.
And now those hormones have been removed.
Steve, I don't think you understand how a vasectomy works.
I'm just trying to make jokes over here. Come on.
And I'm just trying not to make children.
You're a hero, I guess.
Yeah. But what about you? What was your history with the cartoon? I imagine you were all over it, being a big friend of the Dragon.
Well, I actually have the Dragon decoder ring. It's amazing. No, I definitely watched it. I don't think I was able to catch like every single episode. But I liked, this actually appeared on the Cartoon Express. Do you remember the Cartoon Express?
Yeah, this USA Network Cartoon Express. I used to watch Gem and the Holograms and a few
Yeah, they
shows.
had a lot. I remember there was a lot of, in the early days, a lot of Hanna-Barbera on there. And then they just kept, moving stuff in and out. But one thing we might want to consider covering in the future is that one of the last episodes of Savage Dragon, episode 21, known as Endgame, it served as a second part of a 4-part crossover with 3 other of USA's shows. I guess it was part of this Action Extreme team.
I remember that.
And it was a crossover with Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Defenders of the Realm, and Wing Commander Academy.
Holy shit.
It's all video games except for Savage Dragon.
So we'll need to cover those other cartoons separately, which I know we've talked about covering Wing Commander anyway.
Right.
But that's kind of crazy. So yeah, so you were a fan. I assume you watched the all 2 seasons of it.
I mean, I just caught a bit here and there. I don't think I watched it all the way to the end.
You literally just said that a few minutes ago.
Sorry. You had a vasectomy. We're all,
my balls are, in disarray. And as we all know, that's where the male brain is stored in the balls. So
100%. So just for, all right. So we all watched this on Peacock, I assume, because, I mean, I couldn't even find it anywhere else.
Yeah, I believe it's on the free version of Peacock, too. You don't need to.
I know, I didn't pay.
Yeah.
Because I'm cheap.
Which there's a lot of like really cool like Exo Squad you can watch for free on Peacock. They actually have like a pretty decent collection of like good 90s cartoons.
And since you just mentioned Exo Squad, I mean, you realize that both of these shows are produced by Universal Animation, which did Exo Squad and Savage Dragon.
Oh, I did not realize that. That is a fun fact, a savage fact.
That's what we're all about here on Obscurity Now. So anyway, as Yahel said, Savage Dragon, the animated series, lasted 2 seasons, a total of 26 episodes. And the episode that we're watching is the pilot, and it premiered October 21st, 1995. Here's a synopsis of both the entire series and the episode. So, Chicago cop Frank Darling discovers a huge green-skinned mutant named Dragon who suffers from amnesia. In the hope of uncovering his own identity, Dragon joins the Chicago PD and battles evil mutants led by the mysterious Overlord. And just a little comparison to the comic here, they were never referred to as mutants in the comic. They were always freaks. Super freaks. I guess USA didn't like that term. So here's the synopsis for the episode. Overlord sends his monstrous spider-like assassin, Arachnid, to abduct Dragon's police partner, Alex, and mentor, Frank, in an attempt to blackmail Dragon to join his force of evil mutants. Dragon also deals with the media smear campaign. I think that pretty much sums it up. And moving on. The director here is a guy by the name of Craig Wilson. He hasn't really directed much else. He's usually a storyboard artist, but he did storyboards for the Silver Surfer cartoon, Wolverine and the X-Men, and Avengers Assemble. And we've got a couple of writers here on the IMDb. Of course, Eric Larsen is mentioned because these are his characters. And the next guy is Steve Roberts, one of the blandest names ever. But he's written some great stuff. The Earthworm Jim cartoon, Darkwing Duck, Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. Make sure you check out our Hercules episode. Max Headroom, and your favorite, Yahel, Alf Tales, the cartoon.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank God, Alf. I love it.
And then coming up at the end here is Dwayne Capizzi. Here's another one we might need to add to the list. Do you remember the Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot cartoon?
No, I don't remember.
Well, he wrote that along with the Men in Black animated series, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and the original TMNT. And we already talked briefly about the production companies. Of course, Image Comics, something called Lancewood Productions, and Universal Cartoon Studios, which also produced one of our favorites, Exo Squad. Make sure you check out our Exo Squad episode. So, Yahel, who was in this thing?
Okay, so we've got as the titular voice. Actually, I'm going to come back to that. The IMDb doesn't list a lot of the voices, unfortunately. It lists the actors, but not what voice they played. However, I did a little extra research and I was able to find them. So I'm actually going to read off something else. So Overlord was played by Tony Jay. There's also a reporter that's voiced by him and a couple other like minor characters. Richard Richards, which is the he's kind of like a Jonah J. Jameson.
Oh, it's a direct ripoff, 100%.
Yeah, even like the alliteration, right? So, anyways, he's voiced by Dorian Harewood, who also does the voice for Lieutenant Frank. So the one black guy on the cast is doing the voice for the two black characters.
Of course.
This episode, but you know what, like. The guy did a great job, because if I hadn't like looked it up, or until I looked it up, I didn't realize it was one guy doing both.
He did
voices,
do a good job.
So hey, Dorian is the man. We've got Peter Cullen, who I think we all know as Optimus Prime. He plays Bludgeon. We've got Arachnid, played by Frank Welker. Finally said his last name right. And he was Starscream, or no, he's not Starscream. Oh wait, he is Starscream.
Megatron.
Megatron, thank you. Alex Wilde, who is the partner for Savage Dragon, is voiced by Cass. Her name is Kath. Maybe that's short for catheter. I don't know.
Sure.
But it's Kath Soucie, Soucie. I don't know. And also we've got Jim Cummings, who played Savage Dragon. Jim Cummings has done a million different things and voices. I know him from Star Trek Starfleet Academy, but hold on, Steve. I noticed in the credits, I don't know who he played on this show.
I saw him too.
Renee Abajonis, aka Odo, from Star Trek DS9. And even though he's not in this episode, Michael Dorn does later on do the voice of Warrior King. So we do have some Star Trek alumni.
Shall I run it?
And also, wait, I forgot. There's one more. There's also a, oh my God, what was his name? Robert Ito, who was in Star Trek TNG and Voyager. I don't know what he voiced. Couldn't find that, but he's also in this first episode.
All right, here it comes.
Ah! Oh no! We've just entered another Star Trek connection! Ah!
Yeah, they really had a really who's who of voice actors, and I think I saw Mark Hamill in there too somewhere.
Yep, later on, yeah.
he played not the Joker, the Jester.
Yeah.
I made that up. That's not true. Yeah. Well, I guess, that's the deep pockets of Universal Animation at the time. So shall we jump into the blow-by-blow or play-by-play, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, sure, Steve. Sexual.
I'm just, I'm sorry. I shouldn't get you aroused. I know you, just went through something where I'll try to keep my pornographic expressions to a minimum.
Thank you, Steve. Look out for Eric Larsen's next book, The Sensual Dragon, Steve.
Oh, man. Again, I guess this is a kind of a warning if anyone's going to read like Current Day Dragon. It gets really like sexual at some point, but I know no one's going to read it. It's okay.
We do have Blair. Before we get into it, Blair Farrell is in the chat. Thanks for joining. He said we had a station in Canada called Teletoon that started airing this in '97 when it went on the air. So
nice.
About a year after it went off the air in the States, Canada picked it up.
Good job, Canada. Should we move there, Yahel? What do you think?
I think might be a good idea considering what's
I know, right? All right, so we got our classic sort of opening here where you've got your voiceover kind of explaining the plot of Savage Dragon. And then I was worried like we weren't going to get much of a theme song, but then it kicks in. And what do you think? Or first off, how would you describe it, and what do you think about it?
This would have been a great theme song for James Bond Jr.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I was thinking it sounds like a cop show from like the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, I thought it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's serviceable. I didn't think it was very memorable, and I don't necessarily. I mean, it does kind of have like a cop feel to it now that you mention it, but I don't feel like it fits like a superhero kids cartoon.
No, it doesn't, because, all right, I'll just throw out this sort of hypothesis or theory. It's like they're playing, this is not a superhero kids show. It is a cop show that has superheroes in it.
Okay, right, but they're selling it to kids, so
right. But kids love cops, right? Don't you remember cops fighting crime in the future time?
Yeah. I mean, in the '90s, yeah, kids did like cops in the '90s.
Not anymore, but anyway. So actually I like the theme just because it's so different. I mean, I don't know, it's fun in a sort of cheesy throwback sort of way. Yeah, I mean, no one's gonna go to Guitar Center and play it on a guitar or anything.
There's no lyrics in it, so
right. So yeah, that does sort of ultimately make it forgettable. All right, moving on. It is daytime. We're like on a boat. Several cops, including Dragon's partner, Alex, they sail up to like a junkyard. There's another cop on there, and he explains that those aren't any freaks. Those are Overlord's freaks, and they're sitting on some stolen hardware. And we cut to the gang of super freaks, and a couple of those guys include Basher and Open Face. They never say their names in the beginning, but that's who they are. And Alex gets on the megaphone, and she says, "Surrender, or we'll send in the dragon." And they just sort of, the bad guys, they laugh it off. Ha ha ha, what's he gonna do? And then Alex turns to the other cop and is like, "Oh, dragon's already in there." And he shows up. He begins beating down the bad guys. Dragon then Basher holds up like a it's like a detonator or something.
Yeah. He's got I think it's supposed to be like I was confused about what it was too. Like, 'cause I thought it was like a gun,
right.
But you can also like maybe overload it, and like maybe it's like a Star Trek phaser, because you can also set a phaser in Star Trek to overload. Steve, I don't know if you're aware.
Sure, let's pretend that it's a phaser. But yeah, this is
so you can make a phaser into like a bomb. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, one of the sort of classic tropes of a lot of '90s cartoons, I guess, outside of like Batman the Animated Series, is like, sure, we'll have guns, but they're not going to look like, guns in the real world in the slightest.
Right.
So, yeah, maybe that's why this thing looked just like a remote control or whatever. But
I mean, it makes sense. They make it look futuristic. They can probably like use it to sell toys and that kind of stuff
sure,
too,
Sure, absolutely.
So I get it. But yeah, then the bad guy, what was his name again? Basher. So he's like a goon for Overlord, and he like him and Savage Dragon like fight through this thing, and they like fall down a chute, which is really weird and makes no sense. But then like Basher steps on it, and he's like, "Oh no!" And then like there's this huge explosion, and I was like, "Oh, they're actually killing somebody." Okay, maybe they, but they don't. It's not gory, right? But the implication here is that he's exploded. He got caught in this explosion. So it's like, okay, well, at least they're gonna carry over some of the violence, and then later on, very disappointed when they backtrack and like Basher shows up. I'm fine. Like at the end of the episode.
Right. I mean, I would say that that's actually kind of a trope of Savage Dragon, is that tons of people have died and come back to life like over and over again. But all right, so right off the bat, what are your thoughts after you're up to this point of what you've seen?
Up to this point, I'm thinking it's okay, it's fine. It's very typical '90s cartoon animation. Is very '90s, like good, decent quality,
right?
Animation. Not saying that as a bad thing, but this is definitely a show you can pick out. Oh yeah, from the '90s, like immediately.
For sure. I mean, I can definitely feel where they cheaped out on some things. At least animation-wise, later on down the line. What do you think of Dragon's voice?
Before we get to that, I did want to put out Blair Farrell, since we were talking about Basher. You mentioned that Basher was clearly the inspiration for Don Cheadle's character in Ocean's 11. Something tells me the production staff, the executive producer on Ocean's 11, was not watching.
Interesting parallel there, I would say. 100%.
But yeah, the voice, I don't think fits. I don't think Savage Dragon, it's okay, but I don't know. Usually you'd expect especially in a '90s cartoon, for your hero to sound cooler, I guess. We're talking about, this is the era where you've got Batman the Animated Series, and he just doesn't sound like that.
Right. Cool. I agree with you there to a point. I remember even back in the '90s hearing him, and I was like, that doesn't sound like the way I assumed Dragon would sound. Like, it's weird. It's almost kind of
like you thought it would be more sexually arousing to you.
Well, hey, I thought we were going to not make things sexual, because of your operation. I don't want to ruin anything, Yahel.
Steve, you can get an erection. It's fine. Actually, I can get an erection too. I'm just not allowed to do anything about it until Thursday.
Well, make sure you read some horror erotica by Garth Marenghi, because it's erotic enough to give you an erection, but you'll be too afraid to do anything about it.
Oh man, that's a great tagline.
But enough about erections. Good God.
Yeah.
So, all right. It's like Wolverine-ish, but it's like extra sort of kind of snarky. It's the kind of voice. It also reminds me of, that detective in Batman, Bullock?
I think so.
It's like that. It's basically a regular cop's voice, not a superhero's voice. And
maybe that's what they were going for. Try and make him sound like an everyman.
Right. And I just wonder how much involvement like Eric Larsen had, because I really feel like this is, aside from a few things here and there, it's a pretty decent translation, at least of the tone of the Savage Dragon comic, to a point, obviously minus a lot of like the gore and violence. But yeah, like the voice, it's really weird at first, but then it kind of, at least for me, it kind of grew on me a little bit. Like, did it ever?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, no. I mean, honestly, it was just initially jarring, but after a few minutes, it's fine.
For sure.
And Jim Cummings is a good voice actor.
So, sure. I mean,
his performance is fine. It's just the tone of the voice wasn't what I was expecting.
It's like, was he the right tone for the job or the right voice for the job?
Yeah.
So anyway,
I mean, but he's done I know he's done other characters that are like, I guess for the lack of a better word, more cool sounding or whatever.
Right. I think what Eric Larsen wanted was more like sort of snarky and weathered and not like, I mean,
I think this is what they were going for sure.
So cut to Richard Richards, who's definitely not J. Jonah Jameson in any way.
Definitely not.
Who's like a newspaper mogul, yelling at his newspaper underlings about Dragon. And then he's basically... he tells them that the dragon is on a rampage, and they're like, "No, he's not." And he goes, "Take some liberties." And then we cut to like the reporters. They surround Dragon and Alex as they exit the boat. Dragon then cuts a promo on Overlord through one of the newspaper cameras. Says he keeps crashing the parties, but Overlord is a no-show. Which I kind of like the dialogue of this. I mean, it's just, fun, sort of typical 90s superhero action.
It's very like, I would say more like 80s action movie dialogue.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is fine. I mean, this is a 90s kids cartoon, there's supposed to be a lot of action. So, and they lean into it, which I think if you're going to do it, that's how you need to do it. So I agree. The dialogue's fine.
Absolutely. So cut.
Yeah, like Overlord says something like, "Oh, you'll be seeing me at a party sooner or later. I just hope you RSVP."
Yeah, which is the title of the episode. I can't remember if I mentioned that or not. So yeah, he actually cut to Overlord and he says, Dragon is going to get a formal invitation. So now we're with Dragon and Alex. They're driving in some weird looking Jeep thing. Again, I guess.
Yeah, it gave me Demolition Man vibes, this vehicle.
Right. Something that I'm sure they wanted to sell to kids. Dragon says, I guess this is sort of like his motto. It doesn't matter if you're a human or a freak. Or does he say freak or mutant? I think he says
freak.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't matter if you're human or freak. It matters if you're good or evil. And then Frank calls, and it sounds like he's getting kidnapped by a monster, which I thought it was pretty weird that you never get to see Frank until much later. They just keep talking about him. Cut to Dragon and Alex. They show up to investigate where Frank was kidnapped. Dragon sees the culprit and follows on foot into the sewer. There, Dragon fights Arachnid. Now, Arachnid must be Frank Welker, right? This definitely sounds like one of his voices.
Yeah. Arachnid was Frank Welker.
Yeah, but Arachnid just sort of runs away. I think it's funny how Dragon just smashes his way out of the sewer to get back to the surface. He sees Alex, but then a semi-truck accidentally sort of runs him down. But of course, he's the Savage Dragon, so he just sort of like pushes back and stops it.
Savage Dragon is an asshole, basically, because Savage Dragon has enough time to like get out of the way of the semi truck, but instead he just like shoulder blocks the semi and destroys it,
right?
Ruining this man, the driver's sole source for income.
Yeah, that guy could become a villain.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
He's gonna go protest with those other truckers in Canada.
Yeah. And now he does ask the driver if he's okay.
Right.
His airbag went off, and he was fine, but he could have easily killed him. So is Savage Dragon not on a rampage? Is R. Richard Richards not correct?
Oh, so you're a R. Richard Richards supporter. I see. How do you feel about Alex Jones?
I'm a supporter of the truth.
Nice. Well said. So yeah, after his little run-in with the semi-truck, he looks back and Alex is gone, kidnapped. Alex wakes up covered in webbing to hear Overlord and Arachnid talking. She looks over, and now we finally get to see Frank, who is Savage Dragon's mentor, the guy who got him into the Force. He's right next to her. Overlord basically monologues his entire sort of plan, says that the cops are just bait. He's going to send Dragon an invitation to like Wrigley Field or something.
Yeah, I think so. He's like, he asked like Frank, do you think Savage Dragon would be able to resist an invitation to something at Wrigley Field? And Frank, weirdly enough, says, oh yeah, he'd love that. Like he says something like, yeah, he won't be able to resist. Like, why are you helping him, Frank?
Yeah,
you're helping Overlord.
It gets a little weird there. But yeah, Frank and Alex talk, and it's revealed that they're being held in the basement of R. Richards' building, which is a weird place to. I mean, why would you even stash him there? I think it was more of like a reason for having their big showdown at the end, which we're about to get to. Yeah. So Dragon enters the R. Richards building where Basher is waiting. They fight with some ridiculous guns. And this is where I start to notice that this cartoon, like many cartoons in the 90s, suffers from the you're not allowed to throw a punch rule that was coming down from a lot of the kids groups and stuff at the time.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, they only
the RTC.
What's that?
The right to censor.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Stevie Richards.
Like they just sort of run at each other and then grab each other's shoulders. Like Dragon does a lot of sort of like throwing and body slams and stuff. Right. And typical of the time, still a little disappointing. But this is definitely not Spawn, the HBO animated series.
Definitely not.
So Dragon beats him up. We don't even really get to see it. This is where I feel like they may have cheaped out a little bit on the animation. Overlord appears, which he and Dragon circle each other, which I'm surprised they even paid for that. They just keep circling each other. It's so awkward.
Yeah.
They basically fight their way up to the roof of the building. And there's like this giant sign that says R. Richards on top of the building. And basically, Dragon defeats Overlord by throwing a giant C at him, knocking him off the building. Dragon then, the R. Richards then shows up, and Dragon, with like a bunch of reporters, Dragon convinces him to report favorably about him. Oh, and I forgot to mention...
well, Dragon figures out that they were using the R. Richards building as the villains were using it as a hideout or something. And there was newspaper ink or something. I don't remember. It was a little convoluted, but basically it seems like R. Richards maybe he either knew that they were using his building as a hideout, or he's an idiot.
Right. Yeah, that's basically what Dragon sort of threatened him with. He was like, "How would you like the rest of the city to know that there was a bunch of villains here using your building as a hideout?" And he sort of flips his tune at that point.
Yeah, he being R. Richards says,
right.
"Oh, isn't Savage Dragon great? He saved this building, blah, 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 blah."
And there was a fun little callback that I forgot to mention. When Dragon was fighting Basher, I think at the beginning, or maybe even the second time they fought, Basher broke his sunglasses. And then when he's talking to R. Richards here at the end, he takes R. Richards' sunglasses and puts them on, which, I don't know. It's a fun little, very action hero-y kind of little callback that, at least they bothered. After some of the crap we watched, your James Bond Juniors and your whatnot. And that is basically the end of the pilot episode of Savage Dragon RSVP. So shall we run the bumper?
Let's do it.
All right, it's in here somewhere. Here it is.
Remember before we rated it. That's the question.
Did you have any other comments before we render the verdict?
No, not really. I think you covered it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot that happens in the show. I would say the one thing I don't think that we discussed is that they do kind of explain Dragon's origin.
Right.
At the very beginning, how he was found coming out of a fire, and it was Franklin that saved him, and got him on the force, blah blah blah. Blah.
Right. Yeah, there was I like how they sort of weaved it into all the action. I mean, I'll say straight up, I mean, I like the pace of the cartoon just because
it goes by pretty quick.
And then they weave in, because there was a scene where it was basically Basher at the beginning. He was like saying, when he was threatening to blow everything up, Dragon was like, I can take the heat. I was found in like a field of flame. Go ahead, do it. And just a fun way to like work in the info. So and
you know, a lot of this episode was like, there's not a lot that happens in it, but the episode is really just to establish who Savage Dragon is, that he's a cop, and also that, you know, he has amnesia, so he doesn't really know where he came from, how he ended up in that fire. And we get like Overlord dropping hints that may or may not be true about his past, saying that like Savage Dragon used to be one of his like best goons or whatever.
Right.
So, you know, there is like some intrigue built up that, you know, I would assume is like explored as the show goes on. So, you know, not a lot happens, but a lot also is established at the same time.
Yeah, they basically show all the major players. The one thing that I definitely feel like was probably not needed. Like, there didn't need to be a confrontation between Dragon and Overlord already.
Yeah.
Like, he needed to work up to that. I mean, I know he's just going to end up coming back and they're going to fight again. But also, I found a lot of the animation during that fight to be pretty bad. Like, there was a sort of like I guess you want to call it a cycle or something of Overlord moving around on the roof. And it just looked just really kind of clunky. I mean, especially since, I mean, the rest of the show is pretty decent, as you said. But yeah, without any further ado, should Savage Dragon be tossed into the black pit of obscurity, never to be heard from... wait, let me rephrase that. Should Savage Dragon, the animated series, be tossed in the black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again, or should it be remembered for all of human history?
You know, I'm gonna, I think, surprise you and say keep it. You know, I wouldn't say this is like a great first episode, but there's some like interesting like things that are like mysteries that are established, right? And like you said, the pace is good. It flows, goes by pretty quickly. The animation like definitely suffers during the action sequences. You're 100% right about that. But otherwise, the animation is, you know, good. So yeah, I say keep it. What say you, Steve? You Savage Dragon sexual?
Savage sexual. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm kind of surprised. I thought you would definitely be on the fence. I was like, he could probably go either way with this. I just like how weird it is. I mean, you know, you can group like, you know, X-Men, Wildcats, and Ultra Force all into like the sort of same little corner. And then you got your, you know, your Batmans and DC stuff like over in their little corner. Like, there's really not much else like the Savage Dragon. And
it's definitely original.
Yeah, and they do a good job taking the character design like straight out of the comic. Like, I actually started watching a little bit of the second episode where they have Barbaric, this like big red guy who was in did you ever read Freak Force, which was like the team book of I read a lot of the auxiliary books that were part of sort of like the Eric Larsen corner of the universe, and Freak Force was fun. I would definitely recommend that to anyone who wants to go back and just read a random team book. But yes.
And I one thing I did want to add, Steve, sorry to cut you off, but you know, this episode is of the episodes that are rated on IMDb, this is like by far the lowest rated episode.
Really? Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah, so the RSVP, the one we watch, is rated 6.3. All the other ones are 7 or above.
Yeah, so they must have gotten their footing later on.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are gonna save this puppy.
In accordance to Obscurity Now, the most important streaming YouTube podcast in all of the internet, you shall be remembered. Yes. Good show. Good show.
All right, so yeah, it's a good representation of the Savage Dragon, a very PG version, 100%. So, I guess that is basically going to do it for this episode of Obscurity Now. Anything else you need to add there, ballless wonder?
Again, they do not remove your balls during a vasectomy. My balls are
Oh,
still
come
there.
on. We all know you're a puppet for big vasectomy.
I do want to recommend, though, any men out there that don't want children and are serious about it, obviously with everything going on in the country, and I won't dive into the politics of it, but yeah, get a vasectomy. It's covered usually by 100% by most insurance. And even if you have to pay out of pocket, it's like a few $100 usually. I mean, it's much cheaper than a child.
Just call Yahel. He'll set everything up for you.
Yeah, I'll give me a call. I'll set you up with my ball guy, and it's an outpatient procedure. You know, most places will just do localized anesthesia for whatever the urologist I went through. They actually put you out, so I was like out cold completely under full anesthesia. But that's rare. Usually it's just localized and takes less than 30 minutes, and you're done.
Hello, this is Yahel Velazquez. You bring them, we snip them. I don't know if I know you feel really alone and vulnerable after your operation. Just wanted to let you know my brother-in-law recently also got a vasectomy. So everyone's doing it. It's
yeah. I'm sure with everything that's going on, vasectomy rates are going to increase exponentially. So make your appointment now. Before all the slots fill up.
I've already invested in a vasectomy stock because that's definitely a thing.
That's a real thing that you can buy into. It's on Robinhood app under what's its ticker symbol? Probably SNP, right?
Wow, we could just go on forever about this, but yeah, I guess that's it for this episode of Obscurity Now. Make sure you're joining us next Sunday when we will be talking about the very first episode of Sam Keith's The Max, or I believe it's also referred to as MTV's The Max. So basically the Max animated series. And if you want to leave a comment, that'd be cool. Or subscribe, that'd be swell. And for all your vasectomy needs, you got the vasectomy master right over here.
Yeah. And if you're on TikTok, don't forget to follow us there at Reptilian Media. Actually, I know the name is Reptilian Media, but is the at Stephen Finite there?
It's at Reptilian Media.
Okay. Yeah. Just do a search for Reptilian Media. Steve curates some clips from the show there, and for whatever reason, we're hot on the top.
Yeah, because all the other algorithms seem to hate us for some reason. But all right, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next Sunday.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.